For those of you who joined last week, I do apologize for the technical issues. I promise we did test the audio before we went live, and for some reason my laptop, one of the ports blew up or something, so I do apologize. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. Basically, what we are going to cover today is how to prepare for a successful interview. And before we start, I wanted to give you just a little bit of information about Impact Business Group. If you don't know who we are a professional staffing firm with offices in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Tampa, Florida, and we specialize in helping professionals find new career opportunities. And as you can see here, our areas of expertise include engineering, information technology, and finance and accounting. We are a group of talented professionals who do have years of experience in these industries, and I think that's one of the things that definitely sets us apart from other staffing firms. Some of the things that we can help you as a candidate, help you build a professional resume that will help you get the interview. As you can see here, there is no cost to you for any of our services. We also offer interview preparation, coaching, and negotiating with the client on your behalf so that you can obtain the best offer packages. And there's just a short agenda for today's presentation. So quick question, if you want to answer by chat, how many of you are looking for jobs right now or currently interviewing? All right, let's talk about what we need to do before the interview. The first step before you go in for an interview is to research the company. Seems pretty basic, right? Get on Google, research the company, find out look at their annual reports, look at their upcoming projects. Take some notes on this information, and don't be afraid to jot down things that you find on this company. Formulate some questions around those notes. That's a great tool for you prior to walking into the interview. Company size, number of employees. When you go into the interview, just show that you've done your research on the company. Shows obviously that you are interested in doing your homework. Also, and this is a really important one too, research the interviewer. There's a lot of social media profiles, LinkedIn profiles. Try to find out as much as you can about the person that you are going to be interviewing with. And as you will find, working with Impact Business Group, these are also tools that we provide you with. These are things that we can provide you with prior to the interview. This is information that we go through in the interview preparation, and I'll get to that a little bit later, get to some more details on that. Preparing questions, this is a really important one. A lot of times we'll see people walk into interviews and they don't bring a portfolio, they don't bring a pen, they don't bring paper. It's really, really important that you prepare a list of questions before you go into the interview. Formulating good questions shows the interviewer that you have done your research on the organization, that you are prepared, professional, and interested in what they have to offer. One of the next things that I'm going to talk about, and guys, if you only take away one thing from today's webinar, this is the thing that I would ask you to walk away with. Very important. Question. Open door for this very important question. The first thing that I would ask is, what are your expectations for this position, and who do you see as the best fit? Basically, once the hiring manager has you have what the hiring manager is looking for, and then you can formulate your responses accordingly. One of the other points that I wanted to bring up about the hiring manager and the interview questions, if the hiring manager asks you something that you don't know the answer to or that you do not have experience with, don't lie. Very important, don't lie. Be honest about your skills and your abilities, but also in the same breath, we want you to make sure that you articulate to the hiring manager your ability to learn new things. Try to think of something in your past, some type of relevant experience or relative experience that you've had in the past that is relevant to the skill that the hiring manager is looking for, and show that bridge basically. Mr. Hiring Manager, I may not have experience with A, but I have done B, and here's why I feel it's similar to what you are looking for. Does anyone have a good example of a standard interview question that you always ask, something that's kind of your go-to question? Next step, preparing copies of important documents. If you are working with a recruiter, don't be afraid to ask that recruiter to send you a copy of the resume that he or she shared with the hiring manager. It could be a little different than the one that you have on hand. It may have a logo or a letterhead. Some things may have been tweaked a little bit to enhance your resume, to bring out your strengths. So make sure you always ask your recruiter for a copy of the resume that they have shared with the hiring manager. I mentioned this earlier as well, but bring a small portfolio or a folder with a copy of that resume, as well as your prepared questions that we talked about earlier. And then the other note that I made here is make sure that your portfolio also includes a pen and paper. Again, don't be afraid to jot down notes or jot down questions or take notes during the interview. Again, it just shows the hiring manager that you are prepared and that you are interested. Let's move on to the actual day of the interview. Okay, very important question. In today's world, we hear the terms business casual, business professional, and casual. And what does that all mean? It probably means something different to every HR person in every corporation around the globe. However, none of that should have any meaning to you. When you attend an interview, you need to dress for success, period. First impressions are a lasting impression, and you cannot go wrong with professional dress. If you don't have an up-to-date relative business suit, at the very least, go with a shirt and tie, or shirt and dress pants for men, and a skirt and a blouse for women. Rule of thumb, keep it simple, and you're more likely to avoid a wardrobe malfunction. The only exception to this, I would say, is if you are working with a recruiter and that company or that hiring manager or that HR department has specifically told that recruiter for the candidate, maybe they're a jeans shop and they specifically say, please have your candidate wear jeans that day, or please have your candidate dress business casual. That's what I would say is probably the only exception to that rule. Otherwise, like I mentioned, you can't go wrong with professional dress. Another tip for the interview day, make sure you eat something before you go in. Don't go in hungry or overstuffed on pasta or carbs so that you're lethargic. You also want to keep caffeine to a minimum. Arrive early, at least 15 to 20 minutes early. Not only is on time already late, but these few extra minutes will give you a chance to find a parking spot, check in with the receptionist, use the restroom, and maybe just sit quietly in the lobby for a few minutes and gather your thoughts. Take a deep breath, keep calm, and arrive early. Now we're seated in front of the hiring manager and they're starting to ask questions. Again, keep note of what I told you early on in the process. As soon as you can get that question in during the interview process, as soon as you can ask the hiring manager that question, the more confident you will be about answering his or her questions. So you can see here we took down a few notes. Be confident, but not cocky. Play up your strengths, but don't be afraid to be humble and show a few weaknesses as well. The hiring manager or the interview panel, they want to know that you are human. Keep your answers short, clear, and concise, and make them relevant to the question that they are that they are asking. Telling the hiring manager that I'm a people person doesn't really say much about who you are. Tell him or her why people like you, what you can do for people, how you get along well with coworkers, etc. Does anyone have a go-to question about, obviously this is a standard question in the interview process, they ask about weaknesses. Does anyone have a good way of answering that question, or kind of your go-to answer for that question? Now we're going to move into the STAR method. A lot of companies now are using a behavioral interview process. That can be a little intimidating or maybe difficult to navigate, but the best way to go about the behavioral interview process is using the STAR method. If you go out, there's tons of information out there on the STAR method. If you Google that term, STAR method, it can give you a lot of good information before you go into an interview. But in short, just to kind of summarize the STAR method, basically it's a way of formulating an answer to a question. The way that we formulate that answer is laying out a situation. What was the project or the task or the duty that you were assigned? Set up the situation and be specific. Give detail about what you did. Again, the hiring manager wants to know what you did. They don't necessarily want to know what the team did. So when you're formulating your answers to these questions, make sure it's I did this. And that moves us into the task. What goal were you working towards? What were you specifically tasked to do? Again, staying in the realm of I did this, I did this. Action. What were the specific steps that you took to accomplish this goal or task? And again, using the word I, not we. The hiring manager, especially in behavioral interview situations, they are really looking for what you did. The result. What happened? How did the event end? What did you accomplish? What was the result or the outcome of your work? Has anyone been through this type of interview in the past, and do you have any tips on navigating that? All right, so you've made it through the interview. You think you've done a great job. Now comes one of the most important steps in the entire interview process is how do you wrap it up? How do you leave the interview, and how do you follow up? I always suggest you use a good, professional, firm handshake and look the manager in the eye, thank him or her for his time. And don't be afraid to ask him or her what the next step is in the process or when he or she plans to make a decision. Very important. Again, it shows that you are interested in the opportunity. Don't be afraid to express that interest. Mr. Hiring Manager, I'm very interested in this opportunity. What are the next steps? When will I hear from you? Has anyone been offered a position on the spot when they interviewed? And I'm curious if you have accepted on the spot. And then following up after you leave the interview. This is a question that we get from a lot of candidates, is how to send a thank you note. Here's the rule of thumb on a thank you note. If the manager gives you a card or shares his or her contact details, email the thank you note directly to him or her. If not, if they do not share their contact details and you are working with a recruiter, send your thank you note to the recruiter and then have him or her forward that on to the hiring manager. So here's a question. If you aren't working with a recruiter and you don't have the contact information for the hiring manager, how would you send a thank you note? Any good ideas there? All right, and then just wrapping it up, feel free to visit our website, submit your resume, chat live with us. You can view our job postings, our hot jobs. And are there any additional questions or comments before we go? Well, thank you everyone for joining us. I hope that you found this information helpful. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions. You may email me directly. My email's listed here on the screen, penny@impactbusinessgroup.com. I'd be happy to assist you with building a resume or putting you in touch with the right companies. And you can find a lot of information on our website as well.